Jessica gripped the steering wheel tighter as her headlights cut a narrow tunnel through the desert night. The road stretched endlessly in front of her, two faded yellow lines across a landscape that looked more like an ocean of shadows than solid ground. Every few miles, a tumbleweed skittered across the asphalt, carried by a wind that seemed to whisper instead of howl. The radio had given up half an hour ago, nothing but static, and her phone lay in the cup holder with a single dying bar of service. The only sound she had left was the droning hum of her engine. That was when the warning light blinked red on her dashboard. Low fuel. Her stomach tightened. She hadn't seen another vehicle for what felt like an eternity, and the last exit had been miles behind. For a brief moment, she considered pulling over, waiting until morning, but the thought made her skin crawl. The desert didn't feel empty. It felt watchful. The stillness of the night pressed in on her, as though something just out of sight was holding its breath, waiting for her to stop. Then she saw it. At first, just a faint smear of light on the horizon, trembling through the waves of desert heat. As she drove closer, the glow sharpened into neon, red and white, flickering against the black sky. A Circle K relief surged through her chest, but it was the uneasy kind, the relief of a drowning swimmer spotting driftwood, not land. The neon sign buzzed faintly, stuttering in and out, the tilted K glowing too brightly, while the red circle sputtered like a broken pulse. It didn't look inviting, it looked hungry. Jessica pulled off the highway, her tires crunching over gravel. The gas station sat in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by miles of dead brush and dust. Only one other vehicle occupied the lot, a pickup truck coated so thick with sand it looked like it had been abandoned for decades. The lights inside the store burned weakly, flickering as though they were fighting to stay alive. She parked at the nearest pump. The digital display glowed faintly, its green numbers steady and waiting, yet the place felt deserted. No attendants, no customers. Not even the hum of a refrigerator or the distant rumble of traffic, just silence broken only by the insect buzz of the neon sign. Jessica sat for a moment, her hand frozen on the ignition key. Her instincts whispered warnings, don't go in. Don't get out, drive away while you still can. But her fuel gauge was already pressing against empty. She had no choice, she stepped out of the car. The desert air wrapped around her, cool but metallic, carrying the faint smell of rust, even though the night was dry. The gravel crunched under her shoes with unnatural clarity, each sound magnified in the silence. She felt exposed, as though unseen eyes followed her every step. Her gaze drifted to the glass doors of the store. Faded posters clung to the glass, advertising sodas and snacks, deals that had expired years ago. Inside, the aisles stood stiff and shadowed, the shelves bending beneath layers of dust. For a moment, she thought she saw movement, a pale blur slipping between shelves. But when she blinked, the space was empty. Jessica forced herself to focus. She grabbed the gas pump, her fingers brushing metal that felt strangely warm, as though someone had been holding it seconds before. She scanned the lot again. The silence pressed down on her, too heavy, too deliberate. She squeezed the handle, fuel rushing into her tank with a steady click-click of numbers climbing on the display. She exhaled a shaky laugh. See? Nothing wrong. Just a gas station. But then came the sound. A door creaking open. Her head snapped toward the convenience store. The glass doors were sliding apart, slow and deliberate, though she hadn't seen anyone touch them. Pale fluorescent light spilled onto the concrete, stretching toward her like reaching fingers. Relief should have come, an attendant finally, but it didn't. Instead, dread knotted in her chest. She knew instinctively that she did not want to see who or what was opening that door. For a long moment, nothing stepped out. The air seemed to freeze, the buzzing of the neon pausing in mid-breath. Then came the faint shuffle of feet, slow, dragging. The kind of movement that suggested not just fatigue, but a body moving because something else commanded it to. Jessica's hand trembled on the pump handle. She tried to look away, to tell herself it was just exhaustion playing tricks, but her eyes stayed locked on the widening shadow that spilled across the store's tile floor. It grew longer, broader, impossible for a normal human shape. She whispered to herself, the words breaking. It's just a gas station, just a gas station. But the neon sign above her head buzzed louder, and in its erratic, stuttering glow, the shadow inside seemed to tilt its head and smile. The doors sighed open and the smell hit Jessica first. Old sugar, hot plastic, something metallic like pennies in rain. Fluorescence hummed a thin, wrong chord. She stepped in. The doors sealed behind her with a rubbery kiss too intimate for a convenience store. Rows of snacks stood at attention, colors sun-bleached. A hot dog roller held gray, mummified links. The cooler exhaled and fell quiet. Evening. The voice came from the counter. The attendant had either been there the whole time or arrived without moving. He wore a red polo and a name tag rewritten so often the letters bled. It might have said Mike. It might have said mine. His smile hovered a beat too long before settling into place. "Pump 2, right?" he asked. Jessica's mouth went dry. "Yes." "How did you—" "Lucky guess." "Too many teeth." None looked used. His eyes moved over her like someone rereading a menu. "Traveling alone?" "Just passing through." She hated how thin her voice sounded. "I'll pay when it's full." His head tilted. "When it's full," he echoed, testing the phrase. "Good, we like rules." She grabbed a bottle of water. The plastic squeaked. Condensation beaded on a label from a brand discontinued years ago. She brought it to the counter anyway, clinging to the ritual of normal. The register flickered alive before she set the bottle down. "Total, $0.00." He tapped a key. It became $3.02. "Cash or card?" "Card." He slid the terminal toward her. The keypad was smooth with use, but under her fingertips she found indentations that didn't match numbers. A tear, a crescent. The screen waited with the patience of a closed fist. She tapped. The lights shivered. For a heartbeat, the store dimmed and his face became negative space, an outline where a person should be. The terminal beeped approved and the world tightened again. "You from around here?" he asked lightly. "No." He slid the water toward her. His gaze stayed fixed past her shoulder, into an aisle of canned soup. "Folks don't stop unless they're empty." "Empty of gas?" she tried. His smile returned, indulgent. "Sure," he said. "Of gas." The receipt printer chattered and spit a length of paper longer than the purchase required. Warm to the touch. The ink formed words that slipped even as she read them. "Thank you for your, then a sentence. "You are thank you." She folded it quickly. "Is there a restroom?" "Back left," he said. "Door with the mirror. Don't look while the light's off." "Why would the light be off?" "Why would it?" he echoed. A shape passed at the edge of her vision, someone ducking into the freezer aisle. Jessica turned, relieved to have company, but the aisle stood empty. The glass doors reflected her in multiples, each half a second out of sync. One reflection did not snap back when she did. It stayed tilted, watching. "Busy night?" she asked. "Always," the attendant said. His tone made it mean never. The front doors breathed once, though no one entered. A whisper of hot wind made the chip bags rustle. Behind the counter, a radio hunted a station, catching a voice mid-syllable, losing it again. "I should check the pump," Jessica said. He nodded as if they had rehearsed the line. "We'll be here." "We?" "The station." His eyes brightened. "We keep people safe while they fill up. That's the rule. Nobody leaves on empty." "I won't," she said too quickly. He looked pleased. "You say that like it matters." She backed away. The floor seemed longer than when she'd walked in. At the door, she glanced back. The attendant stood perfectly still, a mannequin set to attentive. Only his eyes moved, tracking a point over her shoulder where nothing stood. Outside, night rushed around her. The neon buzzed louder now. The store's hum no longer masked it. The pump clicked once, polite. The numbers on the display kept climbing, as if they had been climbing before she arrived. Jessica caught her reflection in the window. Pale, resolute, a woman pretending to be braver than she felt. Behind her, the doors sighed open again. "You forgot your change," the attendant called, though she had not paid cash. He stood in the doorway, palm extended. Coins lay in it, dimes, nickels, something larger and darker she didn't recognize, slick as if recently washed. They glinted with a light that did not come from the station. "I didn't," she began. "It's yours," he said gently. "You left it here last time." The coins rang in her head like a bell struck underwater. She did not take them. "Maybe later," she said. "As you like," he replied, and the doors closed on his smile, which lingered a fraction too long. Jessica faced the pump. The numbers kept rising. Somewhere behind the glass, the radio found a station long enough for a voice to say, "Attention, stranded traveler," and then collapse back into static. She set the nozzle back in its cradle. The meter did not stop. Jessica hesitated before pushing the heavy restroom door open. The hallway behind her was silent, but the second she stepped inside, a different world seemed to swallow her whole. The air was damp and metallic, smelling faintly of rust, disinfectant, and something sour that reminded her of stagnant water. The hinges screamed in protest as the door swung shut, sealing her in with a hollow thud. Fluorescent tubes buzzed above, flickering in rhythmic spasms that sent jagged shadows crawling across the cracked tiles. Jessica's footsteps echoed too loudly, as if the room were amplifying every sound. The sinks were stained with mineral streaks, and the mirrors above them were covered in streaks that refused to vanish, no matter how many times they had been cleaned. She approached the sink, turning the faucet. It coughed and spat brown sludge before the water ran clear. She splashed her face, desperate for the shock of cold to steady her. For a moment, she shut her eyes, trying to center herself. But when she looked up again, her heart nearly stopped. Her reflection wasn't moving. Her real hand hovered inches from her face. But in the glass, Jessica's reflection stayed still, lips curled in a faint, unsettling smile that she knew she wasn't wearing. It only lasted a second, just long enough to dig its claws into her mind before the mirror corrected itself. Her reflection blinked back at her, trembling, wide-eyed, matching her every move. The stall door behind her groaned open. Jessica spun around, pulse hammering, but the stalls were empty, each door wide open like gaping mouths. She held her breath, waiting for something, anything, to move. Nothing. The silence pressed down like weight on her shoulders. She turned back toward the mirror, leaning closer. Her face seemed wrong, too pale, her eyes too dark, as though some hollowed-out version of her was staring back. Then came the whisper, soft, carried through the air vents like a sigh. "Jessica." Her stomach dropped. She clutched the sink until her knuckles whitened, searching the corners of the room. No one, no shadow, only her. But the mirror rippled. The glass shivered like water disturbed by a stone, and images began to bleed across its surface. She saw shapes moving inside the reflection, figures crowding in the stalls, faceless passengers like those she thought she'd glimpsed in the station earlier. Behind them, a door appeared in the mirrored world, yawning open into a void that did not exist in reality. Her breath fogged the glass as she leaned closer, compelled against her will. The void seemed to pulse, its darkness alive, inviting. Without realizing, she raised her hand. When her fingertips touched the mirror, the surface burned with icy cold, sharper than frostbite. The reflected void throbbed harder, as though eager to swallow her whole. Suddenly, the faucet exploded to life, spraying violently. Water poured out with such force it splashed across the sink and pooled on the floor. The buzzing lights above flickered into chaos, strobing so violently that the room broke into fractured still images. Flash, something leaning out of a stall. Flash, a shadow crawling across the ceiling. Flash, a pale hand pressing flat against the mirror from the inside. Jessica screamed, stumbling backward, her shoes skidding on the slick floor. She squeezed her eyes shut, chanting under her breath, "It's not real, it's not real, it's not..." Darkness fell. When she opened her eyes, the room was quiet again. The faucet was dry. The lights hummed faintly, steady now. Everything was normal, almost. On the mirror, written faintly in condensation as if by an invisible finger, were 3 words, "Don't look away." Her throat tightened. She staggered back toward the exit, unwilling to turn her back on the mirror. The reflection seemed to delay, following her a fraction too slow, as though the glass wanted to hold her image longer than it should. Her fingers brushed the door handle. She pulled hard, and in that instant, the lights died completely. The restroom plunged into pitch black, and in the dark, hot breath slid across the back of her neck. Jessica yanked the door open and hurled herself into the hallway. She clutched the frame, gasping, refusing to look back. The door slammed shut on its own with a thunderous echo that carried down the empty corridor. She knew she was alone. Yet she couldn't shake the certainty that the version of her in the mirror hadn't stayed behind. That thought gnawed at her, lodging itself deeper with every step she took. Was the thing following her now the reflection, or was she the one who had been pulled through, living in a hallway that wasn't quite real anymore? Jessica counted breaths until the tremor left her hands. The store hummed. Neon through the windows printed red-white bars across the floor. She stepped out of the hall, the temperature dipped. Aisles held their poses, chips in formation, cans like soldiers, candy bars to an invisible grid. Then she saw the people, 4 of them. A trucker at the coffee urn, cup tilted, coffee frozen mid-pour. A teenage girl with a dead phone at her ear. A woman with a fingertip hovering over a freezer handle. A small boy by the gum rack, baseball gloves soft with use. All poised at the edge of motion as if the store had shouted freeze. "Hey," Jessica said. Her voice sounded wrong in the bright quiet. "Can you hear me?" From the counter, the attendant murmured, "Careful, you'll break the scene." She turned. He hadn't moved, and yet he felt closer. The name tag said Mike. "What scene?" "The part where they still believe they'll leave." She approached the hoodie girl. The screen was black, yet a murmur leaked from it. Not words, more like a laugh pressed flat. It sounded like her own voice under a lid. She touched the sleeve. It had weight but no warmth, like fabric in a display. At the freezer, condensation latticed the glass. Letters formed inside the frost. "You are here." She wiped with her cuff. The words smeared and multiplied, a dozen "you are here's" crawling in every direction. Behind the door, the cartons were blank, labels stripped to white. The boy watched the candy as if waiting for it to choose him. "Hey, kid," Jessica whispered. "You lost?" His head ticked a fraction. The movement felt imposed. "Later," he rasped, as if the word had been borrowed. The coffee corner smelled like pennies and rain. The trucker's steam line trembled, a string plucked by invisible fingers. "Don't touch him," the attendant said. "It's important to follow the steps." The woman's finger grazed the handle. The glass exhaled a thin sigh. Here smeared into her, vertigo tilted the store. Jessica shut her eyes and saw herself reflected on the insides of her lids. 3 Jessicas, each a half-beat off. She searched for tricks. None. She looked at the boy again. "Later what?" He opened his mouth. His lips shaped leave while his voice delivered live. Jessica moved toward the doors. The 4 figures leaned with her, maybe only the light pivoting, but she felt them tug her forward. The exit seemed farther now, as if the glass had thickened into a mile. Beyond it, neon bled into the lot like a heart's EKG. "All right," she said, "I'm asking." He brightened. "We love rules." At the counter, the register glowed with a number she refused to read. The mirror above it showed a version of her with dust in her hair and an extra year under each eye. The mic hissed, waiting for an announcement that would fix nothing. "I want to leave," she said. "Please." "Of course," he said gently. "As soon as it's full." "My tank?" "If that helps." A high chime rang, thin. The trucker's coffee completed its pour in a single ribbon. The girl's phone blinked, missed call, home. The freezer door eased open the width of a breath and cold slid out like a ghost. The boy lifted his glove and closed it on empty air, satisfied as if he'd caught it. In the glass, she saw a faint double of herself already outside, already walking, already free. That version did not look back. Her fingers closed around the handle. Metal kissed her palm, warmer than it should be. She drew a breath, thin. Behind her, coffee, phone, freezer, glove, all held their breath with her. She pulled. The door gave with a sticky sigh. Night air slid across Jessica's face like a damp cloth. Neon bled over the asphalt, red, white, red. Relief lasted one breath. The lot was wrong. The distance to her car had stretched. Pump 4 waited, hose coiled, nozzle a sleeping snake. The painted arrows no longer pointed to the exit. They circled and ate their tails. She stepped onto the forecourt, no sound. The asphalt accepted her weight and pressed it back. She counted paces, 5, 10, 15, and looked back. No marks. Ahead, the car's angles adjusted. Door narrower, hood longer, the way dream corridors lengthen to keep you busy. She set a quarter on the ground and nudged it. It spun, then rolled back to her shoe as if tugged by a thread. Wind combed the lot, the canopy lights stuttered. Outside the neon's halo, the highway whispered like a crowd. The sound grew teeth. Gravel hiss, a slow syllable that might have been her name or a tire turning on hot road. Jess. The driver's window of her car was fogged from the inside. She quickened her pace. The car held its distance like a mirage, near until she moved, far when she did. She tried cutting angles. The rows of pumps shifted to keep the same measure. Puddles of light duplicated the Circle K logo in rings that never broke. She looked up, no stars, only a smooth blank dark. Her father's voice from an old day. Roads go two ways, kiddo. Forward or back. If one stops making sense, take the other. Forward, she told the lot. No bargaining, she ran. The air resisted like a wet coat. The concrete moved backward like a treadmill of distances. She gained, lost, gained again. I paid, she said. He said I paid. Pump force display woke. Numbers bled that weren't prices. 217, 02, 18, 02, 19. It counted time. The digits lurched, went blank, returned in green. Full. Full of what? The nozzle twitched. The hose lifted a hair. Her tank cap clicked once in reply. The key in her pocket felt heavier, as if it had absorbed an invoice. At the lot's edge, a ribby dog appeared. It walked toward her, 1, 2, 3 steps, and stayed exactly as far as when it began, the space sliding it back on a string. It sat and watched with patient, unreadable eyes. Do I walk backward, she asked it. She tried. The car swelled, the handle neared. She reached, and the distance snapped back like a measuring tape. She pinwheeled, caught herself, laughed once, almost cried. The intercom popped. Mike's voice drifted from glass distance. Please refrain from running, he said. It will only bring you back. Then how? She shouted. Same as everyone, he said. Choose what you'll leave. She closed her eyes and felt the night's cool palm. The frozen girl, the trucker, the woman, the boy with the glove. Later, he had said. Later live or later leave. The words braided and would not separate. She opened her eyes. A handprint bloomed on the inside of the fogged window, slid down, left a clean trail. Another smaller handprint appeared beside it. Breath smeared the glass from within, as if someone had been seated there with her, waiting for her to catch up. Something in her yielded, not surrender, adjustment. She stopped trying to be fast. She matched the lot's breath, in on neon, out on shadow. Step, pause, let the asphalt give back what it wanted to. The distance didn't shrink. It consented. She reached the car door and set her palm on the handle. Warm like skin. Her reflection stared back, older by an hour. Her mouth moved. The reflections did not. Inside the car, a figure sat in the driver's seat with head bowed, hair across the face. For a strobe-long instant, she recognized her own jacket, her own white-knuckled grip on the wheel. Then the interior blinked empty. The fog became only fog. She opened the door, no dome light. The cabin smelled of gasoline, old perfume, and something sweet like cut grass left too long in a bag. The seat felt deep, as if it had learned her weight and wanted to keep it. She slid in, shut the door. The world hushed. Neon strobed over the windshield like a heartbeat. The key turned. The engine coughed, then settled into a low idle. The radio found a station in static. Attention stranded traveler. If you can hear us, don't, and drowned again. Hands on the wheel. In the rear view, the store door stood open a sliver. In the side mirror, the dog waited. Ahead, the exit unspooled like a ribbon, straight, simple, a promise drawn in paint. Forward, she whispered and pressed the gas. The car did not move. The world slid instead. Pumps, canopy, store, dog, gliding backward as one piece, as if she'd been fixed all along and reality had decided to do the walking. The speedometer read 0, the distance to the exit did not change. In the windshield, her reflection smiled first. Then, very gently, the car began to roll. She couldn't tell whether she'd beaten the rule or agreed to it. Jessica pressed her palms against the counter of the Tombstone Gas Station, trying to anchor herself to something solid. The neon hum above her seemed louder than before, as if the light itself had a pulse. The cashier's smile hadn't changed. It was still that fixed, knowing grin, but now his eyes twitched toward the aisles, like he was waiting for something to arrive. Do you see it too? He asked suddenly, voice low, as though confessing a secret he didn't want the cameras. Were there cameras to catch? Jessica froze. "See what?" she whispered back. The cashier tilted his head, his grin widening. "The cracks. They're opening." At first she thought he meant the floor, but then she saw them. Thin, jagged lines shimmering in the air, faint like heat haze, splitting the space between the shelves. They weren't physical breaks, but distortions, ripples in reality itself. When she blinked, they seemed to vanish. But when she looked sideways, they were there again, twitching open like wounds. Jessica's breathing quickened. She stumbled backward, nearly knocking over a rack of dusty postcards. The cashier didn't move to help. He just stared, whispering, "Careful. If you step wrong, you won't come back." She turned toward the door, desperate to leave, but it wasn't where it should have been. Instead of the glass exit, there was now only a long row of refrigerators, each buzzing faintly. Inside the frosted glass doors, the drinks were wrong. Some bottles were filled with thick, dark liquid that moved sluggishly, like tar. Others had pale shapes floating inside, like something organic suspended in fluid. Jessica pressed her hand against one door. The cold leached into her skin. Inside, she thought she saw her own reflection, but distorted. Her face pressed against the glass, eyes wider than they should be, mouth moving though she made no sound. Her reflection lifted a hand, pressing it against hers from the other side. Only it was smiling. She recoiled, tripping over her own feet, hitting the linoleum hard. The sound echoed too long, like the floor had become a hollow stage. From the shelves, things began to stir. Packages rustled, cans rattled. Boxes shifted slightly, as though something inside was alive and restless. "Make a choice," the cashier said calmly, his voice now echoing unnaturally, as if more than one version of him was speaking at once. "Stay on this side, or follow the cracks." Jessica's chest tightened. "What happens if I follow them?" she asked, barely able to speak. The cashier chuckled, but the sound was warped, stretched. "No one ever comes back to tell." The shimmering fissures widened, thin lines of pale light cutting through the air, revealing glimpses of something beyond. Shadows twisted on the other side, movements that didn't match anything human. Whispers leaked through the cracks. Familiar voices calling her name. One sounded like her mother, another like a childhood friend long gone, another like herself. Her pulse thundered in her ears. If she stayed, she was trapped in this impossible station with the grinning cashier and shelves that seemed to breathe. If she followed, she might vanish into something far worse. The thought clawed at her mind. What if the choice was the trap itself? The buzzing lights flickered violently. For a second, the gas station dissolved into fragments. Jessica saw desert stretching forever, cracked earth glowing under a black sky. She saw a line of faceless travelers waiting at an endless pump, their hands outstretched, holding empty cans. She saw herself among them, eyes hollow, lips moving in silent prayer. Then the light snapped back, and she was once again on the floor of the station, gasping for breath. The cashier leaned closer over the counter, his eyes dark voids. "They've seen you now," he whispered. "You don't get to walk away clean." Jessica staggered upright. The exit door was suddenly back in place, glowing faintly like a promise. She ran toward it, every step heavier than the last, as though the floor wanted to keep her. When she finally pushed through, the cold desert air hit her lungs, sharp and burning. But the night outside wasn't the same. The pumps looked older, rusted, abandoned. The sign above the station was broken, only half lit. The road was cracked and swallowed by weeds, and the horizon stretched empty under a sky that looked bruised with storm. Behind her, the door clicked shut. She spun, but there was no station, only a boarded-up ruin, windows smashed, walls scarred with graffiti. Her reflection lingered faintly in the broken glass, smiling back at her even though she wasn't. Jessica's knees weakened. She couldn't tell if she had escaped or simply stepped deeper into the cracks. The desert held its breath around the ruin. Jessica stood where pumps once gleamed. Now bent frames leaned like ribs. She touched the cracked glass of the door. Warmth traveled into her palm, as if the building were a living thing. Inside, no bell rang. The dark rearranged itself to include her. Aisles slumped. In the corner, a payphone hung without a cord, its coin return glowing red like a patient eye. Beneath it, a guest book sagged on a nail. She opened it. Names swept across the pages, frantic, then careful, then block letters like gravestones. Dates repeated the same day. The last page was a single word written until the paper tore, stay. On the next page, faint pencil spelled Jessica Marlowe. She didn't remember writing it. The phone chimed softly, not a ring. She lifted the receiver. Air sighed through the line, carrying rust and something sweet. A voice arrived as if layered, several versions of her speaking together. "You left the door open," it said. "There isn't a door," she whispered. "The door that looks like a wall. Don't turn around." She didn't. Under her name, fresh graphite darkened on its own. She shut the book. The sound traveled down the aisle and returned as more books shutting again and again like polite applause. "Knock back," the voice advised, "before it learns your timing." She tapped the metal once. The boards flexed inward like lips. She tapped twice. A chair scraped far away. "3," the phone coaxed. She knocked a third time. 2 knocks answered, then a long drag across unseen floorboards. "Who are you?" she asked. "We're the room," the voice said. "We keep shape so you don't have to. You can rest here if you agree not to count. I want to leave." "And arrive where?" the voice asked. "Roads are hallways that forgot they were indoors. Buses are bedrooms with seats. Night is a ceiling with worse manners. Choose your furniture," the receiver clicked. Silence settled, and beneath it a distant piano felt its way along a sticky melody. The warning from the voicemail returned. "When you hear the piano, don't answer the knock." The tune wandered. Outside, a dog barked once and stopped like it had been reminded. Behind the counter, light stitched itself into a person. The cashier's outline resolved. He placed something on the counter that hadn't been there. Her keys on a blank yellow receipt, impressed with ghost numbers. Her pocket was empty. "You'll want these," he said, smiling without teeth. "Traffic is worse when you're the only one moving." "If I take them, am I free?" "You return," he said. "Leaving is our favorite loop." He slid the guest book toward her. Every line was full. The margins repeated her name in tiny scratches. She pushed the book back untouched. Outside, the lot posed as new. Pumps gleamed, their displays stuttering AO219. Her car idled by pump 4, exhaling fog that didn't drift. At the edge, a bus waited with its door open. The silhouettes inside were fewer than before. Jessica walked to her car. The driver's window held a face that was hers, arranged for someone else. The clerk's outline appeared beside her and handed over a paper map creased to exhaustion. A red route looped from the station into the desert and back like a surrendering question mark. "Take the scenic way," he said. "Fewer dogs. I'll take the quickest." "The quickest is the scenic," he replied gently, sliding the map into her pocket without touching her. "Close your eyes at the bend." The road rewards faith. She got in. Warm air waited. The radio lit to a hush that kept time with her breathing. The keys hummed like they remembered her. She didn't start the car. The bus door hovered in the corner of her eye, an exit that behaved like a dare. The piano found a high note and held it. "If I blink," she asked the windshield, "will you move?" Everything showed mercy by staying still. Then a second breath entered, soft, synchronized, from the back seat. It drew in as she drew in, it exhaled first. Without turning, she felt herself seated behind herself. A thought brushed hers. "Drive when the knock is behind you." "Stop when it's inside. Which is it?" she whispered. The bus door began to close, slow as a lid. Somewhere in the desert, the dog remembered not to bark. Jessica turned the key halfway. The dash woke. The clock showed 2:19 and refused to change. She waited for the knock. It came from the payphone. It came from the guest book. It came from the part of her that had kept standing in the aisle. 3 beats 2. 3. She turned the key the rest of the way. The engine caught quietly, like a dream permitting itself. Headlights washed the pumps a color they didn't deserve. Her hands settled on the wheel. Behind her, the second breath leaned forward until it could have been a whisper. It didn't speak. It didn't need to. The road unrolled like a tongue asking to be believed. Jessica eased away from pump 4. Grit hissed. The dash clung to 2:19. The radio held a hush that wanted language. The paper map warmed her thigh. She didn't look. "Close your eyes at the bend," the clerk had said. The road rewards faith. She aimed for the exit that had slid left. Headlights laid a ribbon over flat dark. The station fell behind. A second breath kept time in the back seat. Present and wrong. "I'm leaving," she told the glass. Dust wrote nothing and let it go. Mile markers arrived without numbers. A shadow billboard peeled into a faceless dog. Beneath Scenic byway, arrow into blank desert. She stayed right. The wheel tugged left like a leash. She held it. The map pressed harder, insistent. A not quite her thought surfaced. The quickest route is the one that looks like waiting. "I don't wait well," she said. The breath behind her exhaled. The road dipped. Joshua Trees watched. The radio's hush resolved into a thin piano, the store's melody, playing from nowhere. She reached for a knob that wasn't there. The music dimmed anyway, as if the car remembered a radio it no longer had. The bend arrived like a suggestion. Gravel ticked, air cooled. "Now?" she asked the dash. 219 glared. "Now," agreed a thought from behind. She closed her eyes. Tires thrummed. The car drifted and corrected, as if unseen hands steadied the wheel. She tried not to count and counted anyway. 1, 2, 3. The knock came on 4 from the air against her eyelids, as if night had tapped her face. The car lifted and settled, a boat over a wake. Gravity loosened and returned. She kept her eyes shut until her lashes hurt. When she opened them, the center line looked too white. A green sign said welcome and nothing else. The bus had found her. In the mirror, it floated a quarter-mile back, doors closed, cabin lights dim, courteous as a hearse. "Not tonight," she said, pressing the accelerator. The bus matched her without effort. Buildings assembled, a black-windowed diner, a motel with permanent no, a service station that could have been the same one every time. The map pulsed 323 at her hip, then along her spine. "Behind me or inside?" she asked. The second breath replied with a hush that meant both. A hanging traffic light oversaw a roundabout of 4 identical roads. It cycled for no one. Each road led back toward where she'd come, furniture rearranged for novelty. 219 held on red, the bus stopped. "Pick one," the radio said in her voice. She took the road with no fence and no shoulder. Tamarisk crowded in. The asphalt wore layered tire marks, same wheelbase repeating, an alphabet of panic. Half a mile on, a figure stood with a thumb out. Her foot couldn't find the brake, yet the car slowed, polite as prayer. Where a face should be was only reflection, the back seat's dark smeared to shine. The thumb tapped, 323. She kept her eyes forward. In the corner of her vision, the figure kept pace too long, as if the road had lost the bend returned. Same gravel counting, same brief float. This time she watched the world fold and unfold like a map, learning a crease. For a heartbeat, she saw the bus's driver, herself, one hand on the wheel, the other touching glass as if checking a fever. "Stop," she told the empty air. "I won't ride." A sign rewarded her. Exit 1 in 1 mile. Relief rose so fast she laughed. The sign repeated, then again. The mile stretched. Fog bloomed on the windshield in a handprint from the other side. She cracked the window. Night slid in, cool and smelling of rain that would not arrive. "Tell me where to turn," she said. The piano climbed 3 notes and refused the 4th. The bus dimmed its lights, patient as famine. The road narrowed to the width of a choice. Right shoulder, wooden stakes with reflectors. Left, nothing. The map quivered, but she didn't measure. Measuring would mean staying. She kept the wheel steady. The exit arrived without an off-ramp, just a seam across the asphalt, a line cut with a razor. Beyond it, darkness with texture. Headlights hesitated, then poured through, tires thumped. The car settled, relieved of some duty. The bus did not follow, or followed by remaining where it was. The desert opened into a plain of low domes, half buried in earth. Their skins shone as if wet, though it was only light. Each had one narrow door. Each faced her. The road carried her to the nearest and stopped. The engine idled. The piano clicked off. Hush returned. The second breath finally spoke. Not aloud, but gently behind her eyes. "You asked for a night with no more decisions. The station heard you. Everything here is an answer." Jessica let her hands drop. In the glass, her reflection blinked on a different rhythm. "Then what's the question?" she asked. From beneath the car, soft and deliberate, came 3 knocks. 2, 3. Jessica waited for the tremor to leave the chassis. "If you're an answer," she told the hood, "say it out loud." The second breath leaned forward. Her legs obeyed. Gravel ticked. She peered under the car, only layered shadow. She tapped the frame, 323. From the plane, something larger echoed it back. The nearest dome offered a metal bar. Above the slit, no admittance. Beneath, smaller, welcome. Make up your mind, she said, pressing the bar. The door opened inward twice, as if correcting its memory. Inside, cool light pooled without a source. A single aisle spiraled to the center. On its shelves, pieces of her life, the toddler sneaker, the have a nice day mug, the compact mirror lost at 19, bus transfers stamped 219. Each tag priced not money but arrival. Mug, 1 arrival. Mirror, 2. She kept her hands to herself and walked the spiral. At the center, desk, guest book, payphone, a small piano with glass black keys. No pianist, still notes formed. The guest book lay open to a page bearing one careful word. Question. What's the question? She asked, half teasing her nerves. The second breath said nothing, though the hair on her neck bristled. The payphone rang with a sound almost like a ring. Hello? Her own voice, distant. Final boarding for Jessica, gate 1. Doors closing. I'm not at a gate. You will be when you answer. That isn't a question. The piano gave 3 notes and refused the 4th. She set the receiver down. It stayed warm, as if the breath sat inside it. She wrote under question, which door leaves? The ink wicked backward, only which remained. Beneath, in pencil that hadn't been there, you. Unhelpful, she said. A seated impression thickened on the piano bench and stood. Her height, her hands, not a reflection. Reflections obey. You keep calling me, Jessica said. What happens if I answer wrong? You leave, said her voice. You arrive. Those aren't opposites. They are here. It touched the cradle. The receiver clicked heavier. Say no at the right time and go home. I never say no at the right time. You're improving, it said. What does the station want? To keep count. To know which knock deserves a door. Outside the doorway, the bus had drifted closer without crossing space. Its doors stood open, showing not seats but a corridor that ran into itself. At the far end, a door labeled room. Don't, the figure said. She stepped closer anyway and unfolded her map. It had added a crease. No roads, only black rectangles labeled room, each with you are here beside it. If everything is an answer, she said, any direction is correct. That trap keeps most people gentle, the figure said. Refuse to be kept. How? Say no when you mean yes, yes when you mean no. The guest book had turned a page alone. A motel keycard lay there. The fob read, Pump 4. On the opposite page, Final Call. The second breath leaned to her left ear and owned the word no. Fine, she said. She took the key. At the door, she knocked once, then twice, then once, wrong on purpose. The door refused. She pressed the bar. It opened anyway. Outside, the car waited. The bus breathed at the curb. She held the key to the headlights. No, she told the bus. It accepted the word like a pond takes a pebble. Ripples, then quiet. Then yes, she told the car. The locks clicked. She didn't get in. A traffic light glowed alone on the plane, cycling for no one. On the 5th change, she opened the trunk with the key. Wrapped in oilcloth waited the compact mirror from 19. Behind its first mirror hid the secret second. She angled them until they made a hallway of themselves, vanishing into smaller halls. In the endless center, a tiny figure sat at a desk and lifted a phone. Her now. The figure mouthed answer. The piano added a note, then declined the next. Don't sit, the second breath said, suddenly sharp. She closed both mirrors. Not yet. She pocketed the compact. The corridor inside the bus had turned back into rows of obedient seats. The room sign looked innocent. Jessica, said the announcement voice from everywhere and under her ribs. Final boarding. She knocked the key fob 323 against the dome's bar. From under the car, the ground answered 1, 2, 1, as if a bigger question had learned to disagree with itself. What's the question? She asked the dark, that everything keeps answering. The traffic light turned yellow and stayed, thoughtful. In its wash, she read the sentence the station had been too polite to print. How many times can you arrive before you admit you never left? She stood very still, a choice dressed as hesitation. Then she walked past bus and car, chose a different dome, one she had not used to enter, and pressed its bar without knocking at all. The new dome met Jessica with a shut museum hush. No shelves, a slanting corridor, rubber mats remembering feet. Along the right wall, punch clocks waited like small mouths. Every slot held a card stamped 219 in red, her name written in a hand she could not place. The second breath hovered at her shoulder. She drew a card. Fresh ink bled and added another 219. Arrived. Correct and wrong. Say no when you mean yes, she whispered, sliding the card back. She turned one clock backward. Gears purred, offended. Lights brightened in thirds. A book-sized window cut the left wall. Through it, the bus stood close enough to fog the pain. Its aisle narrowed to fit a single self. At the end, a door waited. The sign no longer said room. It said again. She walked. Tiles clicked 323. The second breath kept time. A bulletin board offered notes. Shift swap, night for night. Lost and found, manager, on duty. Please see yourself. Center, no knocking after hours. After crossed out, hours underlined twice. A frosted door read off and ice touching. Office, she said, turning the knob. Inside, a counter faced a mirror pretending to be a window. No clerk. A bell with an ivory button. A sign, ring for service unless it's you. She didn't ring. The window showed the counter's view, as if she were the clerk. Her reflection arrived a blink late and rang first. The sound was near and far at once, thunder in a drawer. A door behind the counter opened. The clerk's almost shadow, bruised dark shirt, smile that remembered teeth, inclined its head. "We've been expecting you," it said without moving its mouth. "We like punctual guests." "I never arrive on time," Jessica said. "I arrive, and time follows. That's punctual here." It gestured toward a bad news chair. "Punch in and we'll escort you to the platform." "No," she said pleasantly, setting the pump 4 key on the counter. "Off shift." "Then yes," the clerk answered. "Platform then." It didn't touch the key. The second breath approved in a cooling of air. She returned to the corridor. The window now framed the bus so close she could step in. The far sign changed. Again to until. All the clocks clicked once and printed 219 again. "Backward," she said. "Count backward." She walked heel first. Tiles counted 3-2. The second breath stumbled and laughed. A stair dipped. Below, a second office mirrored the first, reversed like a hurried print. The bell wore a crack. A sign said, "Do not ring." Beneath it, smaller, "Please ring." The mirror window showed a platform that was bus bay and baptismal font at once. Her reflection arrived early and waited. "Gate 1, said the announcement voice. "Final boarding." She pulled a drawer. Blank transfers and one ticket to a place spelled in edges. Departure 219. Arrival, a blank wide as apology. "Say no," breathed the second breath. "Say yes," said the clerk's voice from the other office. Jessica tore the ticket and set the pieces back. The corridor sighed. The clocks fell quiet. The mats forgot to remember feet. She pressed her palm to the mirror window. The glass felt like water before rain. Beyond, the bus's corridor flexed like a throat about to speak. "What am I if I don't board?" "An arrival postponed," said the ceiling voice. "A door waiting for a question." "And if I do?" "Same," the voice said. "Only faster." Her reflection leaned in. "Ask me," she told the glass. "Ask the right thing." The mirror mouthed the clerk's phrase, "Platform, then?" Wrong question. She unhooked "Do not ring." On its back, a penciled pattern 323. Beneath, faint. If the door answers wrong, change what a door means. She returned to the first office, set the bell on the floor by the corridor's window, crowned it with the pump 4 key and tapped the key 323. The sound was a little cathedral. The window unlatched with a polite click. The corridor beyond widened just enough to admit a promise. "No," she told the opening, stepping away. It waited anyway. "Yes," she told the mats and walked toward the exit. As she climbed, the punch clocks woke and printed 2:18, then 2:17, counting backward. Lights dimmed in reverse. "Backwards works," she said. The second breath hovered. At the top, she checked the tiny window. The bus hadn't moved. At its door, a figure waited. The clerk, or her, or a decision's shape. The inner sign no longer said, "until." It said, "now." She opened the compact, catching the window in the second mirror. The corridor doubled, then quartered, until the bus's door was a dot folding in on itself. In that dwindling spark, a bell rang once. She closed the compact and faced the bar. "Wrong answer," she told the door. "Right direction." She pressed and stepped back into the night. Wind returned, dry, thankless, combing the lot. Neon at the Tombstone Gas Station flickered. The O blinked like a nervous eye. Between pump 3 and pump 4, Jessica felt the concrete tilt in intention more than gravity. The second breath orbited her shoulder. She smelled old fuel and rain that never starts. Pump 4 hummed a low vowel, a throat rehearsing words. She lifted the pump 4 key and the hum aligned as if tuned by her hand. In the sliding door she saw herself, longer, rested, calm, past reason. She stayed still. The reflection waved first. The door opened without a bell. It inhaled and held the breath. Inside, aisles leaned. Frost wrote and erased letters on the coolers. The chip bags kept a whispering quorum. 323 tapped itself in the air like a habit the building refused to break. Her double stood at the back by the freezer that once held harmless sugar. Same jacket, same shoes, same dust, hands too clean. It wore her face like a finished answer. When Jessica tilted, it anticipated. "Not a mirror," Jessica said. "Not a copy," the double said, her voice through felt. It pressed the handle. The glass rippled outward. Behind Frost, the bus idled, aisle narrow as a rule. A driver waited. The driver was Jessica with the smile she saved for strangers. "You want me to board?" she said. "I want you to end," it answered. Ends are doors with fewer hinges. Condensation tried, failed, then formed. All roads end here. "I don't believe in endings," Jessica said. "Then you don't believe in yourself." The freezer sighed. The bus blinked its cabin lights twice. Jessica laid her palm on the glass. Cold gripped. Pressure tugged. The driver beckoned, gloved and patient. The double covered her hand through the glass, a breath ahead. "No," she told the tug and the gesture and gravity's manners. A crack ran the frame. Winter leaked out. The bus door unsealed with hush. The second breath tightened to a thread at her ear. "Say no," it warned. "Say yes," the double coached, mouth late to its own sound. Jessica raised the key into the store's hard light. The double flinched inward. "This isn't for fuel," she said. "It's for meaning." She struck the handle. The seam zipped shut. Darkness took the freezer. The double hammered palm to palm. Every strike clicked like a clock corrected. "You are not my ending," Jessica said slowly. "You're my echo with better posture." The pounding faded. The double mouthed something unreadable. Lights died behind the glass. For a breath, the neon's O stared back, then it blinked away. The lot had edited itself. The bus was gone without leaving. The sky performed vacancy. The torn ticket warmed. Where the blank had lived, letters bled verdict, herself. Beneath, finer, arrival time, 2:19. She laughed once. "Of course!" "Through you," said the second breath, "not to you." "Through," she agreed, slipping the ticket back where time could find it. At pump 4, the nozzle hung like a stray thought. The display showed, and below, now. Beyond the pumps, the desert made more night. She set the key in the slot and didn't turn. "If I open, I end where you want. If I lock, I end where I choose. Both are endings," the second breath said. "Only the lane markings differ. Then I'll drive the shoulder." A figure crossed the far light, her outline, her walk. It raised a palm, hello or do not. Jessica raised hers and made a third meaning. "Watch me." The figure mirrored her, late and exact. The word board arrived without sound, burned into her thought. Aisle, door, bell followed like promises. "No," she answered, and the pumps clicked like tongues. Neon steadied. The O stopped blinking. Her phone, dead since the bus, lit and buzzed 323. One notification. Pay here, choice yes, no. No app, no icon. She pressed no. The station drew breath. A piano rolled a soft apology. The second breath tightened, then eased, a not remembering string. The figure lowered its hand. Heat bent its edges. The key warmed, not heavier, just chosen. I'm not boarding, she told the night. I'm arriving differently. Wheels whispered. Not a bus, a grocery cart. It bumped pump 1 and rolled toward the curb where the world thins. Through me, she said, paving a road with the sentence. Through, agreed the second breath. She slid the key into pump 4. The mechanism considered being a door. She waited, hand steady. In the store glass, her double watched for one heartbeat, nodded like concession and refusal at once, and fell back into ordinary reflection. A timer she had not set woke a sign. Restrooms and a quivering arrow that flickered left, then right, then resigned itself to forward. Desert. The key waited. The pumps waited. Night kept its impolite patience. Jessica counted backward. 3, 2, say it, the second breath whispered. No, she said, and turned the key anyway. Jessica staggered through the darkness, her breath shallow, her chest heavy. She thought she had escaped the nightmare of the Tombstone Gas Station, yet the world around her refused to let go. The landscape twisted into shapes that felt familiar but wrong, like memories she couldn't trust. She told herself she was moving forward, that she was leaving it all behind, but every step carried the weight of déjà vu. The road stretched endlessly ahead. Signs flickered with words she couldn't read. The silence grew louder until it pressed against her skull, buzzing like a swarm of insects trapped beneath her skin. Her hands trembled, clutching at nothing, searching for proof that she was still real. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw it. A faint glow in the distance, pale and haunting, exactly like the first time she saw it. A single fluorescent light buzzing against the night. Her heart sank. She knew that glow. She had walked this road before, and waiting at the end of it was the Tombstone Gas Station. Jessica froze, every nerve in her body screaming at her to turn back, but her legs betrayed her. One step forward, then another, until the outline of the building grew clearer. The cracked windows, the crooked sign, the flickering lights, all the same. Even the shadows in the corners hadn't changed. It was as if time itself had rewound, dragging her back into the cycle. The realization gnawed at her sanity. Was this punishment, or had she never left at all? The bell above the station's door jingled faintly in the wind, though the door hadn't moved. The sound echoed in her skull, louder than her own heartbeat. She whispered to herself, No, this isn't happening again. But the whisper dissolved into the still air, swallowed by the emptiness that seemed to recognize her. The gas station wasn't just a place. It was alive, watching, waiting. She forced herself inside. The smell of stale cigarettes and gasoline hit her like a memory she didn't want. Every shelf was exactly as she remembered, dusty, half-empty, untouched by time. Her reflection stared back at her from the cracked glass of the refrigerator door. But this time, her reflection did not move when she did. Its eyes lingered, too sharp, too knowing, as though mocking her desperation. Jessica turned away, only to hear the echo of footsteps following her. She spun around. The store was empty. But the footsteps continued, closer, heavier, relentless. Her breathing quickened. She wanted to run, but the narrow aisles closed in around her like walls of a labyrinth designed to keep her here forever. The gas station was no longer a building. It was a trap, reshaping itself to fit her fear. A soft voice broke through the air. "Welcome back." Jessica froze. The voice was her own. It came not from her throat, but from somewhere deeper, woven into the walls, into the buzzing lights above. She covered her ears, but it only grew louder, splitting into layers of whispers. Every whisper carried her own words, phrases she had spoken, thoughts she had buried, memories she had tried to forget. They echoed from every aisle, filling the room until her mind began to fracture. The reflection in the glass door smiled. Her double lifted a hand, pressing it against the glass. Jessica mirrored it unconsciously, her palm cold against the surface. For a moment, she wasn't sure which side of the glass she stood on. Was she the Jessica trapped inside, or the one still walking free? The thought made her knees buckle. Then, with a violent flicker, the lights went out. Total darkness. Only the sound of her breathing remained. Or was it someone else's? She reached into the dark, searching for an exit, but her hand found only air. Her chest tightened, her lungs refusing to pull in air. Panic surged, and then the lights snapped back on. Jessica was outside again, standing at the edge of the road. In the distance, glowing faintly in the night, stood the Tombstone Gas Station. Exactly as before, the cycle had reset. The illusion of escape had shattered. No matter how far she ran, no matter what choices she made, she would always return here. Her lips trembled as she whispered the truth she had been avoiding all along. I never left. And in that moment, she couldn't tell if the gas station was a place in the real world or if it had always been inside her mind. Was she walking the road endlessly, trapped in a nightmare of her own making, or had the station itself claimed her soul as fuel to keep its lights burning forever? The answer remained buried in the silence. The fluorescent light buzzed once more, humming like a lullaby. The story closed where it began, with a woman staring at a gas station that would never let her go.